Hey y'all, I'm Dan Hamilton, Marine Corps veteran and host of the Next Gen Warrior Show. As always, the Next Gen Warrior Show is brought to you by Chairman George P. Bush and our staff here at the Texas Veterans Land Board. For more information and resources provided by the VLB, check out vlb.texas.gov. If you're new to the Next Gen Warrior Show, we want to welcome you in. The show that we promote every single Monday is about discussing the personal and professional growth of military veterans here in the great state of Texas, the careers, the trials, the tribulations, but ultimately the lessons learned from incredible veterans like Ruben Ayala, who is joining me today from San Antonio. Ruben, it's great to be talking with you. I know you got out of the military, out of the Army as a captain, and you were in special forces. Can you tell us a little bit more about your military background before we jump into Triple Nikel and so many of the great businesses and ventures that you have started since you left the military?
Absolutely. And first off, thank you, Dan, for having me on the show. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you this afternoon. But yeah, like you said, I spent 13 years active in the Army. I started out as an enlisted guy and got out as a captain. I was in the Special Forces branch, aka Green Berets, and I decided to hang up my pistol belt and call San Antonio home.
What made you come back to San Antonio? Is that where you enlisted, or what makes it home for you?
Well, that's where the majority of my immediate family was at, in San Antonio. So it was a no-brainer for me. I actually commissioned out of San Antonio. I graduated from UTSA in 1999. So for me, it was an easy decision to come back here.
Yeah, I'm interested too, if you can talk a little bit about the founding and the concept of Triple Nikel. But before we do that, if you can kind of lay a little bit of groundwork to me. So for somebody who's listening to this, or maybe somebody who's on active duty, and they go, if you're doing something for 13 years, which is it's very regimented, you are heavily ingrained in the culture and the society, especially with your team members. You spend tremendous amounts of time training for deployments and then cycling in and out of country over your 13 years of service, I'm sure. Did you have any sort of idea when you got out that you wanted to go into business? Or was it once you got out and you actually experienced civilian life that you went, okay, now I know what I want to do?
That's a good question and a loaded question all at once. Because if I told you that I knew what I wanted to do, I'd be lying to you and everybody listening. But what I can tell you is that I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. If you look behind me here, you see my pin. This poster that I have here on the wall, I keep it there for a specific reason. That was my first entrepreneurial venture back in 1997. When I was in college, I was promoting parties here in San Antonio as a way, it's just a side hustle. You know, I was a barber. I drove boats on the Riverwalk. So to me, the idea of being self-sufficient and just figuring out how to make your own money has always been a passion of mine. And I've always had that calling. And then when I was looking to get out of the military, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I did not want to work for somebody else. So although I didn't have a plan, I knew that I was going to do that. And my first step was to go back to school and get an MBA just to figure out how business worked professionally.
So tell us about Triple Nikel then. If you can give us a little bit of a history lesson on Triple Nikel, and then talk about the founding of the company.
Yeah. So Triple Nikel at its core is an attire and apparel company. It's a lifestyle brand. And the way we came up with the name is a throwback, and it's an homage to the 555th Parachute Infantry Battalion. So I started out my career in the 82nd Airborne Division, and it's pretty well known in the 82nd. If you were in that community as a paratrooper, the 555th Parachute Infantry Battalion was stood up in 1943 as a test platoon, and that was the only unit that Blacks and minorities could serve in. So they were dubbed the Triple Nickels because they were the 555th. And for me, as I was toying around with different names Triple Nickel just came out to me, and it rang true. It sounded good, but at the same time, we wanted to pay homage to those who came before us.
Yeah. And so you talked about what the company is as an apparel brand. Can you expand on that maybe a little bit more and why you decided to set up the brand?
Yep, absolutely. That's really it. So at the core, like I said, we're an apparel brand, but when you look underneath the iceberg, it for us it's a movement. So COVID really allowed me the opportunity to just sit back and observe all of the different things that were happening. Number one, in our country, but two, within the veteran community. And what I saw, particularly in the retail marketplace, with different companies that promote veterans affairs, were images and perceptions that I didn't necessarily like. I saw a lot of violence. I saw a lot of hate, and then the visuals didn't have people that looked like me, and I thought that was an issue.
Hmm.
So that was the prompt for me to do something about that and create Triple Nickel.
Yeah, and when we talked off camera, before we had the opportunity to record the show, you talked about a little bit of your story about joining the military as a minority and your passion for reaching out to maybe young men or young women like yourself who maybe would not consider military service, but you're also using Triple Nickel not as a way to as just a brand, but you're also trying to reach into minority communities, Black or Hispanic communities here in Texas and then across the nation to tell them about the importance of military service and the impact that it had on you. Can you provide maybe a little more context to kind of the mission behind not just the veterans aspect, but also some of the people that you're trying to reach outside of the veterans community?
Yeah, absolutely. So just to give you context, I'm from Puerto Rico. That's where I was born, and that's where I was raised. So coming from Puerto Rico, not everybody is supportive of military service. That's number one. I have family members who still question why I joined the military. My mother joined the military when she was in her 30s just to get us out of the island, and she was questioned as well. So the just the notion of patriotism where I come from is highly questionable. And then when you get here in the minority community, particularly Black and Latino, just given the nature of the country, and racism and sort of the divisiveness, there's still some of that stems within those communities too. So for us who've served, we see that. And that's something that is not necessarily inherent to everybody across the nation. So for me, having served, having that sense of patriotism and loyalty to country, I wanted to be able to display that in an easy way. So everybody wears clothes. It's like music. People like music. They can gather around it. They can understand it. And for me, it was an easy way to display that. So as a minority who served, and now an entrepreneur who's here in the community and doing work and living in the community, I thought it was an easy way for people to look at it and say, yeah, man, if Ruben can do it, and his partners have done it, I think we can get behind that too.
So what's your message then? If you go, if you go speak to maybe folks in your family, if you have, a niece or nephew who's considering the military, what's the kind of the conversation look like, and what do you try to at least impart to them?
Yeah, first off, I'm just straight up with them. I tell them it's not all that bad, because there's a lot of skepticism. I don't know if you've ever talked to anybody who's been straight up with you about this, but there's a lot of mistrust with the U.S. government. They think that you're going to go in and the military is going to run tests on you, and it's going to be against your will. But I tell them that it's not like that. There's a lot of opportunities that'll be afforded to you, and that, you know what, Uncle Sam he just doesn't completely own you like you think. So it's just breaking down those urban legends and just letting them know that it's okay. You are going to have to move. You are going to have some levels of uncomfort. Yes, you may deploy, but at the end of the day, it's a great way to start a career.
Well, that's actually what I was going to ask you too. I addressed it earlier, the concept of you doing 13 years in something that is as so formative as being in infantry and being in special forces. Um, when you joined the service, did you perceive it to be part of your career, or did you imagine that you do 20 or 25 years and make it your career and then retire after that?
I'll be honest with you, I didn't know. I went in as I went in as a PFC, and I entered as a legal specialist. Went to Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and I just went in with an open mindset. I wasn't a good student. I didn't have that going for me, but I just took it day by day, and that's kind of how I formulated this. It's kind of like I didn't wake up the 1st of January and decide that I was going to start an apparel line.
Hmm.
These things, the opportunities present themselves, and I jump in and go after them. I didn't commission in the infantry with the intentions to become a Green Beret either. Those are opportunities that were afforded me along the way, and I did it. So yeah, to answer your question, I didn't come in with a set plan. I just took I just took the opportunities as they came and approached them.
Yeah. Tell us about apparel, and you guys do so much work through social media, and I really love kind of the branding that you guys have, and you are very active on social media. Is that something that kind of comes natural to you, and can you tell us about building a brand and building a business through social media platforms?
Yeah, that's a real good question, because I personally am not the greatest at social media. I'm not going to say I don't like it, but I'm not very active with it personally. Um, but you have in Triple Nickels, you have 4 guys who are in their mid to late 40s. You have one guy who's in his early 50s. So we are dinosaurs when it comes to social media activities. So but what we do understand is that, given the target market that we want to go after and the culture that we're trying to change, we have to be on social media. So we're doing a lot of listening. We have a lot of mentors who are providing us good feedback, and we're just getting out of our comfort zone and figuring it out.
Yeah, and how has it been received?
It's been great, man. We've been operational for 3 weeks, and I'll tell you, yesterday I just received a picture from a buddy of mine who's deployed downrange, and he was wearing a Triple Nickel shirt. So, I can say our brand is international now. So,
That's
and
awesome. Congratulations.
yeah, thanks, man. So the first round of shirts that we sold when we launched on Veterans Day just started arriving last week. So we're getting all kinds of pictures from people who have received our packages. So it's been real good, man. Just to see people wearing our stuff.
And can I go back to the conversations as well too? Because I want to just park here for a second, because I think it's something that's very important to you. When your mom joined the service and then now you've done 13 years, did she have a big impact on you joining? And then also you talked about maybe there being some skepticism within the community about joining the military. Do you feel like through the brand that there's already having an impact there, and that you're able to maybe demystify a little bit what military service is, and talk about maybe some of the prestige and the incredible lessons that you can have through joining the military?
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. My mom was probably the biggest influencer in me joining, and she, like myself, she didn't go in with the concept of, she did 20 years, but she didn't go in with the concept of doing 20 years. But the times were different. English is my second language, but I don't have any accent. She had to learn English, and it's really evident when she speaks. So for her, the opportunities laid before her were just a bit different than they were for me. I would say for us, we're still too young in the game to say if we've made an impact or not. I think people are just still trying to figure out what Triple Nickel is all about. For us, we're taking the long-term approach to this. I think it's going to take a few years. And you think about the brands that are out there now, the Grunch Styles, the Black Rifle Coffees, what they've done. And if you're listening, I'm not talking anything bad. I'm just saying for what it is. What they've done is they set a culture that has taken quite a few years to just kind of spread throughout the community. So for most people, the veteran culture is all about booze, bacon, and boobs, and it's going to take us a while to kind of roll that back a little bit.
Yeah. And so is there something else that you'd like to include within that conversation?
With regards to what specifically?
Well, I it's kind of an interesting conversation to have about, a lot of, like you said, the military community can be typecasted in a certain way, right? We're all about X, Y, or Z, but I know you're trying to reach out directly to maybe the minority community, but you're also having a larger conversation, right? You're not just speaking to the Black community, the Hispanic community. You're talking to the military community at large about maybe their perception after the military, and to some degree, that's what we do here on this program. If I can pause for a minute and say, as a Marine Corps veteran, when I got out, I thought maybe I needed to be X, Y, or Z after the military, but I realized that there was a different path for me. I got frustrated with just seeing veterans typecasted, if you will, as broken or disabled and unable to continue to lead their lives or serve their communities or lead in the nation. And I thought, well, let's just create this brand. Let's create this show to be able to show the community and to show the country the great work that veterans continue to do after the military. And so maybe that's what I was trying to lead with there. And as you said earlier, it's maybe a little bit of a loaded question, right? But there are things that we do directly, which is to impact the narrative, and then there's things maybe that we try to do here on this show with this brand, which is indirectly educate other folks around us about what the veterans community looks like, after they leave the armed forces.
I gotcha. No, I'm with you, man. Yeah. So what you just hit is part of our mission set. So our mission revolves around three things. The number one is being a trendsetter for change. And part of being a trendsetter for change is changing the perception of what veteran service looks like. So if you take race and you take ethnicity out of that, what you're left with is just veteran service. And right now, what I see in the veteran community, one issue, and everybody knows it, is a suicide. The suicide rates are pretty high. I think one of the issues with why some suicide rates are pretty high in certain areas is because, again, it's just the way we propagate veteran service is really violent and really hateful. So if all you see are guys that have PTSD, and all of the clothing or all of the advertisements or all of the stuff that's being put out there is just hateful or vengeful, that can stick with you. So for us, when we do our advertisement, when we do our marketing, we try very consciously not to include those things. No guns, just no hateful language, because we're trying to, we're civilians now. And we're just blending into society. So the second thing for us, outside of being trendsetters, is amplifying people's voices who haven't been heard, and that's really where, reaching out to the minority community, reaching out to, women who've been in service, those people that you normally don't see, us being able to tell their stories. And the third is inspiring the future generation, so those that are currently serving and those that want to serve. So if you're a veteran and if you're an active service member, just saying, hey man, it's okay if you don't serve 20 years, it's cool. If you serve 20 years, there's life after the military too. If you're looking to serve and you're on the fence about it, and you got that uncle who's saying that Uncle Sam is is no good for you, it's all good, man. So, those are the three things that we're trying to do. And you're absolutely right. I mean, there's more here than transcending race or ethnicity, man. We got a tall task ahead of us.
You actually mentioned in your answer there, you talked about as after you get out of the armed forces of trying to blend into civilian society. And I was wondering if you could maybe speak about that to yourself, because you said that you pursued your MBA at UTSA. And I was interested how the redefining of yourself and maybe the redefining of your own personal goals and who you need to be when you wake up, every morning. I was, you know, I talk about so often here on the show about just not the insulating, but the saturation of the military culture when you're in the service is overwhelming, right? You live it, you breathe it, you eat it, you sleep it. It's everything, right? So there is always this, we call it a transition period, but it's almost a redefining period, right? It's a redefining of who I am to myself, what my career looks like, how much money I can make, where I'm going to sleep at night, the friends and family that I'm going to have that are no longer given to me by the Marine Corps. They're given to me by choice. How did that look for you? How did that redefining process look for you? Can you maybe define some of the highs and lows for us?
Yeah, absolutely. And to me, it took about 2 years to, I'm not going to say fully transition. It's hard to put a number on that. But for me personally, it took about 2 years to deprogram my thinking and just start thinking normal again. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but especially coming from special forces, it's a very tight knit community. You want to just stay congregated with the people who you served with the people who talk your same language, who've been to the same places, and that have the same sense of humor. And you'll quickly find out that in the civilian world, not everybody appreciates those types of things. So just learning a new vocabulary, learning how your skill sets and your education translate into the civilian world. It took me 2 years. I mean, it may take somebody 1 year, it may take them 6 months, but um, I think the good things that I did where I decided to go back to school and go into a program that had a cohort of a lot of people who did not serve in the military. That was probably the best thing for me. It
You
was,
actually found it. Can I pause you real quick? You actually found it beneficial to be around people who did not have the same experience as you.
yes, absolutely. It was beneficial because it forced me to learn a whole new language, learn a whole new way of being. Um, I came in as a civilian, and in the time frame that I served, I forgot a lot of that, and I still had those desires to be an entrepreneur, but I kind of lost my way. And to go back into a situation, into a program that was 2 years long, immersed in business, immersed with people who didn't quite know the military culture, was probably the best thing that I did, because it forced me just to get back into society and just figure out my way and develop another set of skills. Um, Probably one thing that I did not do that was good, that was not good, a con, if you will. I didn't have a mentor or a series of mentors who had one foot in the military, one foot out, somebody that I can call and say, hey, what do you think about this? I have mentors now, but those first 2 to 3 years, I didn't have somebody that I can talk to about it. I kind of quit the Army cold turkey, and I don't think that was the best way to do it.
Yeah. So can I ask you, is there somebody who you look up to now, or is there somebody that can you maybe tell us about your co-founders, the people that you're working with on a day to day, and who have had a big impact on your business?
Yeah, absolutely. So all of my partners, they're mentors of mine. So I'll talk about each one. So the first one, Chris McPhee, he's a retired E8, also a Special Forces Green Beret, NCO, and he has his own business, and he's got a lot of experience. I talk to him on a daily basis, and and we have a very similar mindset. So he keeps me grounded. My former team sergeant, who's also a partner of mine, he's a retired E8 as well. He's a professional golfer out of Wilmington, North Carolina, and he's our operations officer. So we talk every day, just keeping me grounded. And then we have Cortez Riggs. He lives in San Antonio, and he's the founder of the Military Influencer Conference. So he's another great resource that I can bounce things off of. And he's really well tied into the military community. He's also retired E8 as well. So
Yeah, that's I think one of the most critical things to personal and professional growth after the military is really putting those good people around you, and putting people who have similar goals to you, aspire to do similar things. You talked about in the very beginning that you had worked a lot of different jobs, kind of growing up and maybe before you joined the military. And I was kind of interested to know how much of that helps you today with Triple Nickel.
helps out a lot.
Just do all the businesses and all those experiences, do they transfer? Is it a one for one, or is it just you take little different things from each one?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's it's I can't say it's a one for one on everything, but I think I want to say that everything leading up to this point in my life has gotten me ready for this point in my life. I could not have started Triple Nickel if I had not had started San Antonio Healthy Vending. I don't think I could have become a special forces officer had I not done some of the things that I did before I went into the Army. Just it's all about different levels of comfort and how you mitigate your risk. And all these things have just allowed me to do that. So yeah, it's been really cool.
Yeah.
And plus you can just talk to people too.
Right. I'm interested to know how COVID has impacted your business, and what have you learned as a business owner and somebody who's operating in this environment for the last 6 months.
Yeah, COVID's been everything. I'll tell you for fact, if it wasn't for COVID, there would be no Triple Nickel. And COVID really impacted my business, my personal business that I started before Triple Nickel, San Antonio Healthy Vending. We operate vending machines and micro markets all throughout the southern region. And because of the school closures, work from home mandates, business came to a crashing halt during spring break. And we've just been managing that. So if it wasn't for COVID, I would not have had the time to just see what's going on in the periphery. Apparel is just one of those things that, I saw people wearing, and I never paid any attention to it. But when the world stopped and all we had time to do was just get on the computer and see what's going on around us, it was a game changer. And I did not like what I saw. So yeah. COVID's been everything.
Yeah. Where would you like to see the company grow?
I would say, so I'll break it down in different buckets. So I would say in the next year, I would love to see Triple Nickel be in a place to where we have a good national outreach. People know who Triple Nickel is. They understand the brand, and the conversation is there. Like, hey, you got these four guys. They're just trying to change the culture, and I think it's cool, or I don't. It would be really great if we can be there within 12 months. In 3 years, if we can be in retail outlets like 8 Fees, and you have privates wearing our stuff, and they're aspiring to be entrepreneurs, they're aspiring to be the next sergeant major, they're aspiring to be Green Berets, because there's Green Berets who are brown, there's Green Berets who are black or yellow, whatever. That'd be great. And in 5 years, if we can be a household name, I'd be really happy with that. So it's, for me, there's no denying when you see Triple Nickel and you see what we're doing, what the underlying mission set is.
Hey, can I ask you? Yeah, can I ask you who came up with kind of the design of it?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
the font is really cool. So is that you? You coming up with that?
No, I can't take credit for that. There's a real cool designer. His name is Josh Cunningham. He's a veteran as well, and he's based out of Dallas, Texas. And I got in contact with him through LinkedIn. He was a intelligence guy out of 7th Group, where I served as a special forces guy, and we started talking, and he asked me if he can take a shot at the logo, and man, he killed it.
No, it really did. It looks great, Ruben, and I appreciate you coming on the show and talking about not only the brand but the outreach for it and really kind of the trajectory that you're hoping to take Triple Nickel. It's really incredible story being able to sit down and really incredible opportunity to be able to sit down and kind of hear your vision for Triple Nickel and to hear your vision for really impacting the veterans community. But before we go, I just wanted to provide you the last word. Maybe there was something that we didn't get to hit on today or something that you would like to leave our audience with.
No, just once again, thank you. I appreciate you giving me the time to talk about the company, tell our story, and I just ask everybody just to give us a view. You can find us at triplenickel.com, and that's NIKEL, and they can go to any of our socials, triple_nickel, NIKEL.
Ruben, thank you so much for being with us this afternoon, and for everybody listening at home or watching, thank you for joining us as well. We will be back again next Monday with more inspiring stories from veterans on lessons learned how to continue to serve and continue to lead after the military. We'll see you next time.
Follow us on Instagram at Voices of Vets, on Twitter at Voice of Veterans, and on Facebook at facebook.com/Voices of Veterans. To hear more, please visit voicesofveterans.org. Join us in sharing the success stories of Texas veterans. Thank you for joining us for the Next Gen Warrior podcast.